Welcome back to the broadcast. Last week, I had something to do that every parent will have to face one day. Too. College visits with your children. I want you to take a look at this package.
We're having a little problem with the audio, but...
Yeah, we're having some audio problems, but we'll come back to the package in a minute. That was my daughter. If you got... Oh, sorry, we're having some serious camera and audio packages right now. But we are going to talk about navigating the whole college search process. My oldest daughter's 17, and my baby's 2. I've got 3 in between. So this is my first journey out, but it's important that I learn how to do this right. And the woman beside me, Marie Bigham from Green Hill School, she's a counselor there, has been a real blessing to our family during this search. So welcome, Marie.
You know, and I said when I first met Marie, I'm like, why didn't I know you a couple years ago when I sent my first one to college? Because there is so much you need to know as a parent, not just with the college visits, but the whole process that starts really with talking about it and then the visits, right?
Absolutely. And this process has changed so radically just in the last 5 years that even if you're a parent who has gone through this recently, it's not the same thing, certainly, as when we did this, or even when a child did this 5 years ago.
So let's talk about, when does the process begin?
Oh gosh. I've received phone calls from parents of 3 months old, and I think that's a little early.
Okay, see, I'm not there yet.
Start saving money.
Start saving money
probably the good thing.
You know, I think that it's appropriate when a student is starting high school to say, what are your plans? What are your goals and aspirations for the next step?
Okay.
And start then to say, how do you learn best? How do you thrive in school? How do you grow socially? And keep that in mind. Let your high schooler be a high schooler, but start the conversation as early as freshman year.
And a high school counselor is such an important tool, and I wish that I would have taken more advantage of that advice, because trying to navigate it on your own is just frustrating, and going directly to the college is frustrating. So yeah, you play an important role.
And let me tell you one thing that I realized, you know, growing up in a small town, you know, it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to school in Virginia. But there are so many options available now. So how do you narrow down those options?
And that is that's a great question. It's a great point. I think that for a long time, students attended college within 100 miles of where they grew up. Our students now look broadly, not just in the United States, but internationally as well. Wow. And there are 4,000 four-year college opportunities just in the U.S. So I think one of the best ways to start is to have that real conversation with your child. To say, how do you learn best? What are your goals? How will you thrive? And start that conversation. There's a great tool that I suggest called collegeboard.org. And College Board is a great website to start that search process. A student can put in all kinds of criteria, and it will narrow down those 4,000 schools for you pretty fast.
So, okay, I'm sorry. Once you narrow it down, how do you set yourself apart? There's so many kids out there that are applying for schools now.
That's a great question. You know, how do you set yourself apart? I think you set yourself apart by being exactly who you are. Sincerity comes through very clearly in this process. You can't try to mold yourself to fit an admissions office when there's so many admissions offices and so many admissions people.
But you also have to have the GPA. You have to have the community service now, which wasn't something that I had to worry about when I was applying to college. And of course, your ACT or SAT scores need to be at a certain level, and it's higher now than it used to be.
It really is.
I would never have made it.
No, I wouldn't have.
I would never have made it. My SAT, I mean, I struggled on standardized tests. So how important are they in this process now?
They are important. I think there are 5 pieces typically that students approach when they send their applications. Their transcript, which is their grades and the courses they take, the recommendations from teachers, their extracurricular activities, their essays, and their standardized testing. But for students who aren't great at testing, it's important to know that there are about 800 colleges in the United States that don't require testing at all, or are test optional.
Oh my gosh, okay, so I gotta tell you this. So my oldest is at SMU, and the second one, Mason, is graduating this year, and he applied to SMU, and what they did is they accepted him for the following year and said he has to go, but he has a 3.9 GPA. And but it was his ACT score on on a 35-point scale. Well, he only scored a 19.
36,
and he just doesn't test well. And so, what do you do in a situation like that?
I think test prep is important for any student. Just like an athlete wouldn't go onto the field without practicing, just like an actor wouldn't go on stage without rehearsal. Test prep is important. That said, like I said, there are 800 schools that for whom testing isn't the most important thing. There's a website called KTXD-TV.org, where you can see that whole list. And there are some spectacular schools on that list too.
I was going to say, I think like Wake Forest is on that list. American University's on
Yes,
that list.
yeah,
So there are some good
absolutely.
options.
Sarah
Well, he did
Lawrence,
get,
Vassar
he
College.
got accepted to the University of Utah, but of course I want
Wonderful.
You're like, I want to
But you can go visit him to ski.
So really quick, okay, for kids who cannot afford to go on college visits, because,
Yes.
I mean, it's expensive. I mean,
is.
last week I looked at kind of what we had to spend. You know, what are other options for those kids?
I think in Dallas, one of the best options that you can have is next Monday on April 8th at the Irving Convention Center from 4 to 8. There's the DFW National College Fair. 315 colleges from around the world will be there.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Additionally, we're hosting information sessions about the process, about applying for financial aid, about athletic recruitment, and about special talents in the admissions process.
Oh yeah, because the whole financial aid piece
It's
is
a huge, huge
hard
deal.
thing.
College is
navigate.
expensive.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
It's not. So I think one of the first things you can do if you're a viewer is to come to the college fair next week because we'll have a ton of schools there.
All right. Well, you have been great. Do you see now why she's a blessing
Yes,
in
and
my
I
life?
know what I
Thank
missed
you.
out on now.